Our next topic of the day is going to be talking about Cliff Bleszinski, or Cliffy B, as everyone really has called him over the years. The guy in which really made his name known in gaming with Gears of War and the Gears of War franchise. And obviously, guys, we talk about Gears of War quite often on the channel, and I definitely wanted to take, this segment of the show to talk about some recent developments that came out with Gears of War. That being that Rod Ferguson ended up leaving the Coalition, and he is actually going to be going over to Blizzard to start working on Diablo. And so he posted, some news that I began working on the Gears of War over 15 years ago, and since then it has been the joy of my life. But now it's time for a new adventure. I leave Gears in the great hands of the Coalition and can't wait for everyone to play Gears Tactics on April 28th. So a lot of the reception on Rod Ferguson leaving the Gears of War franchise was that Gears of War is a sinking ship and everybody's, jumping off, and Rod Ferguson, since he basically was the face of Gears of War for so many years, ever since like the comeback of Gears, and now he's moving over to Blizzard to work on Diablo. There's a number of questions that come into mind here when it comes to Rod Ferguson and him leaving, in my eyes. Number one is maybe he just got, a better salary. Maybe he just got, Diablo's a bigger franchise, technically speaking, of course, than Gears of War. And so maybe him moving over there was just a smart move, financially, but also maybe he just wanted to try and work on something new, something fresh, because look, Gears of War, he's been working on it since, I believe, Ultimate Edition, and then, of course, Gears of War 4, Gears 5. I mean, so he's been working on a lot of these different things, Gears Pop as well as Gears Tactics. He's had a lot to say in a lot of the things that have been going on, but I think, guys, that he may just want something new, something fresh, and he wants to kind of get away from a lot of the negativity that's built around Gears 5 right now and just the Gears of War franchise, which I don't blame him for that. I really don't. And I want to say thank you so much to Rod Ferguson for bringing back Gears of War for all of us. I don't think there's enough credit where credit's due when it comes to those things. So, thank you for bringing it back. Epic Games wasn't doing anything with the IP until Rod Ferguson, and the Coalition were, created to bring this franchise back from the grave, or from limbo, essentially. And now look at it, it's a franchise that's fully back, right? And obviously there's issues and things of that nature, but he was part of that core that really brought this franchise back. Well, anyways, Rod Ferguson's now moving onwards. He's moving on with his life, moving on to Blizzard, where he's going to be working on the Diablo. But Cliffy B, he did tweet out shortly after Rod Ferguson had announced his departure from the Coalition. Cliffy B says, offer still stands to consult on the Gears franchise, Microsoft. Your move. Rod had a bunch of mine and Lee Perry's unused ideas sitting on the cutting room floor. And this got a lot of feedback as well. Lots of people are talking about this. Lots of people in the community want to see Cliffy B return to the Gears of War franchise. Now, here's my thing. Cliffy B, I really do. I respect him as a game developer. However, there's been times where he just, he's constantly, there's been times where he doesn't really watch what he says, and sometimes it gets him in trouble. And one thing that I've noticed that he did tweet out on his Twitter a while back was that it actually wasn't even really that long ago, but he tweeted out stating that he didn't need to make games anymore. He that was a part of his life, and no longer does he really feel that he needs to make games. He was able to make his, a good amount of money when he was making games, and now he's kind of moving on to the next stage of his life. But then he starts tweeting things like this out, that he would be willing to come back. I don't know if there's, some form of tension there between himself and the Gears franchise, or just tension between himself and, the way things ended with like Microsoft. It's hard to say, because he went on to make his own studio and it obviously did not work out. I'm wondering if this is just kind of a reach. One thing that I do want to mention is that he, tweeted out saying, guys, I truly appreciate the outpouring of support regarding Gears. I sent up this signal flare, and if the Coalition or Microsoft want to contact me, they know how. Nothing more I can do right now but just write. So that's really interesting. Is he writing a script or a proposal for the next Gears of War game? It's really hard to say. But Gears of War is in a very interesting place right now. With Rod Ferguson leaving, obviously this is starting to remind me a little bit of what happened with Epic Games. Like Epic Games stopped caring as much. I'm hoping that doesn't happen here with the Coalition. Like they just stopped caring about, Gears of War, because Rod Ferguson said he had confirmed that a Gears 6 and a Gears 7 as well as a Gears of War film are all confirmed. So that being said, that kind of leads me to wonder what is the future here for Gears of War if Rod Ferguson's leaving. Now, Rod Ferguson did say that it's in good hands with the Coalition, but obviously there's no one there that's really the top dog now. And Rod Ferguson was that guy. So is Cliffy B going to be that guy and come back to the franchise? I just don't know if it's going to be a really good idea. I mean, maybe it will be. It's hard to say. But Cliff Bleszinski he created a really big ego over the years with Gears of War. And I actually think it's part of the reason why there was a downfall. It was just that, after Gears of War 3, I thought Gears of War 3 was the best Gears ever made, without a doubt. I always will give props to Cliff and all the guys over there at Epic Games who were put Gears of War 3 together, because it's the best Gears, in my opinion, to this day. However, Gears of War Judgment came shortly after that, and that was the worst installment, in my opinion, in the Gears franchise. And that was the game in which I really felt like they just did not care. That was the game where it was like, okay, Epic Games does not care at this point about this franchise. And then, of course, we went into a limbo state, and then, of course, Coalition's created, and boom, we get the, Ultimate Edition. Now, could a desperate Cliff Bleszinski, get back into the Gears of War franchise, could that mean a really good thing for the Gears scene? Yeah, it very well could mean really good things. I mean, because if he's really motivated to help continue pushing Gears in the right direction, the thing that I will state about this, guys, is, that there was a bunch of ideas that him and Lee Perry had that Rod did not use. And one thing is that what that brings me to is that maybe Rod didn't think they were very good ideas, and what Cliff might be trying to do is try and bring his ideas back to the table. It's hard to say. I will say that the Gears games, the first 3 Gears games, were definitely more successful than the ones that recently. Gears 4 and Gears 5, I think, were great installments in the Gears franchise. I don't think they made as much money, though, as those first 3 games. It's kind of one of those things. So you always have to wonder about that and what that all means for the future of the franchise, and what's Cliff gonna bring to the table this time around. I would be interested, like if you were to say, you have 2 options. Number 1 is that Gears of War is going to go into a limbo state again. Or number 2, Cliff Bleszinski comes back and we get another couple of Gears games, and we see kind of another, vision, or, a new vision, kind of back to where Cliff Bleszinski, had started with those first 3 games. I would say, sure, let's see what Cliffy B's got, without a doubt. But at the same time, I'm going to be cautiously optimistic about it. There's been a lot of, other people out there stating, their concerns for the franchise. That also, being the Razored Edge, tweeted out saying, I don't know what the future holds for Gears of War, but I know one thing. I've been through some of the darkest times in the franchise, and I'll be sticking with it until the end. But I hope there's something great on the way for us all to be happy about. Love you, Gears fam. And so, obviously there's a lot of concern, a lot of unknowns here with the Gears franchise, especially now with Energy parting ways with the Gears, with their Gears of War team, which a lot of would say is probably one of the greatest Gears of War teams ever assembled in the history of Gears of War. And I really don't know why they decided to do that, unless it was just probably the viewership, the pure amount of viewership that is there with Gears of War. It's just not a very the Coalition and Microsoft, they don't, for some reason, do a very good job with pushing the esports scene within Gears of War. And so not a lot of viewership, I gotta say, and that might have been the real cause and reason that Energy stepped away from the scene, just because there's not enough eyeballs on the game. And that's really all. That's all I can really think of at this point, that they would have wanted to step away. There might have been other unknowns there, or other reasoning. It's hard to say. But guys, what would you think ultimately with the current state and where we are with Gears of War at this point? Would you want to see Cliff Bleszinski come back into the franchise and kind of take the reins back from Rod Ferguson? What do you guys think? Let me know in the comment section below.